In 2001, Marc Prensky, author of books such as Teaching Digital Natives, Digital Game-Based Learning, and Don't Bother Me, Mom, I'm Learning, coined the phrases digital natives and digital immigrants to describe the apparent disconnect between young people's ability to pick up and utilize technology and the abilities of their parents or of the older generations. This notion has been carried on by Don Tapscott, author of Growing Up Digital and Wikinomics.
And for a new generation of digital natives for whom this is like the air.
This whole digital native and digital immigrant thing is just a theory at this point. There has been quite a bit of studies done to show that early exposure to hypertext and other kind of digital technologies do some things in the brain with helping to shape patterns with neurons and synapses, but there's still quite a bit of holes in this theory when it comes into practice. For instance, there's a lot of young people who are not all that tech savvy, and there's also a lot of older people who are very tech savvy. So it's not a bulletproof concept. However, a lot of the things that come out of this idea, whether or not the theory is true or not, have some really profound and useful applications in the classroom.
The teacher's job should be the one that the teacher's job has always been, which is quality and context and rigor and questioning. And if they can partner along those dimensions and teach each other the sides that they know, things will go much more effectively.
While it's probably unrealistic and unlikely that within your classroom all of your students are these super computer and technology geniuses that some people are kind of led to believe by this theory of digital natives and digital immigrants, it is highly probable, and in fact, in most cases, if you take a classroom full of 20, 25, 30 kids, if you pool all their knowledge about a certain type of use of the computer or technology, that you're going to find collectively your students might know more than you do about how to do something, and that's okay, and that's actually a very valuable asset and resource in your classroom. And why wouldn't a teacher utilize that? And one way you can do that is through peer teaching. And there's actually quite a bit of reason why peer teaching is a very effective strategy in the classroom, not just for technology, but for other concepts as well.
What I found out was if you have two students sitting next to each other, let's say John and Mary. Mary has the right answer for the right reason. John does not have the right answer because he doesn't understand it yet. Mary is more likely to convince John than the other way around, simply force of logic. But what I realized was that Mary is more likely to convince John than Professor Mazur in front of the class there. Why? Because Professor Mazur learned this such a long time ago, he has no clue anymore about the difficulties that are going on in John's mind. Right? The better you know something, the more difficult it becomes to teach because you're no longer aware of the conceptual difficulties of a beginning learner. Whereas Mary has only recently learned it and still has a pretty good idea of what John is struggling with. And in fact, you know, when I was a student, I would often not bother asking the professor, but instead go to one of my co-students and ask them, you know, hey, did you understand what he meant there?
How many of you here have used iMovie before?
Me?
How many have used iMovie?
Raise your hand high if you've used it. Okay, you guys are the experts in the room on iMovie. So if anyone has any questions, they're going to come ask you, okay?
And I'm sure that you will remember similar things in your own education, where you would go to a professor and you would ask a question, and it would be clear the professor had absolutely no clue as to what your question really meant. Or, as a professor, you sometimes have a student who comes to you and you think, what in the world is wrong with this student? I have no idea why he or she is thinking that, right? So it's ironic. The better you know something, the more difficult it becomes to teach. So I thought maybe we can leverage this in the classroom. And again, if you think about education as being a two-step process, one, transfer of information, two, assimilating the information, let's make ourselves as faculty members available to help students with the assimilation. And let's give them more responsibility for gathering the information. After all, information is everywhere now, right?